This is Careers Cast, a podcast for students and early career professionals who want to develop a successful and meaningful long-term career in technology. I'm your host, Marcio Saito. Welcome to this episode of Careers Cast. Today we are gonna be covering job interviews, and more specifically, we are gonna be talking about how to handle behavioral questions in job interviews. Before we go there, I would like to say that when companies are trying to hire someone, they usually evaluate a pool of dozens or even hundreds of people and resumes and LinkedIn profiles, right? And then they pick a handful of candidates to interview with the hiring manager plus a hiring committee, right? So if you are being invited for a job interview, you're already a winner, right? You are one of the few among 100 who was selected as a qualified candidate for the job. And I suggest that you put that in your brain, right? And switch into a positive mindset that will make you more confident, that will make you more optimistic, and will help you perform better in the interview. And I understand job interviews are stressful situations. Nobody likes to be judged and evaluated. But again, if you are being called for an interview, you are selected among a very large number of candidates, and you should behave like that, right? You should come to the interview as a winner. And you have to think that the hiring manager, right, the person who is interviewing you, he or she wants you to be successful, right? The best thing, the best outcome of this job interview is that you are the right candidate for the job. I really like you. So everyone has the same goal. The goal is to prove that you should take that job, right? So if you think that way, you think that the interviewer has the same goal. Of course, their job is to be tough, right? But they want you to be successful. And if you keep that in mind, you're going to be more confident, you're going to be more optimistic, and you're going to be more successful. So this is valid for any job interview. Now, let's talk about what are behavioral questions, right? So when a company is trying to hire someone, they want to evaluate two main things. One is, does this candidate have the technical qualifications for the job, right? So if this is a software development job, does the candidate have experience with the tools we use in the company? Does the candidate know the language, the programming language we use in the company, right? And those are going to be more factual questions. They're going to ask, do you have experience with this tool? Do you have, do you know this programming language and things like that? And of course, if you are applying for a job, you should meet most of the technical qualifications to get and to execute the job. You can, of course, say, I'm a quick learner. I will pick up those things quickly. But then there is another area that every interviewer wants to evaluate, which is, does this candidate have the personal attributes to fit in the company culture? Right? So every company, you go to their website and they're going to declare, to the job site, they're going to declare the company culture, right? They're going to say, we like to hire people who are innovative. We like to hire people who are process-oriented, detail-oriented. We like to hire people who cares about customers, right? We like to hire people who know how to deal with uncertainty. So hopefully, right, when you are selecting companies you're going to apply for, you're already picking the companies that you believe, right, they are looking for people like you, and you believe that if they hire you, you're going to be happy in that environment, right? So the goal in the interview is to show that you have the personal attributes to fit well in the company culture, and that's the goal of behavioral questions. So behavioral questions, it's very hard, right, to measure that match in an interview that usually lasts 30 minutes, 40 minutes. So it's a very imperfect process, but every job interview, particularly medium and large companies where they have a more structured interview process, they're going to ask those very formulaic questions that give you the opportunity to show that you understand the company culture and you fit in that company culture. And they always follow the same pattern, right? If you're in a job interview, and you listen to what I'm going to tell you, you're going to be able to recognize those questions. You understand what they're looking for, and you know exactly how to handle those questions. So the questions are going to always follow this structure. You have to deliver a task. There is some problem, some challenge. How would you face that challenge? What actions would you take? And what are the outcomes of your action? Right? So, and the questions can be formulated in two main different ways, right? They can be about your experience in the past. So they can say, for example, tell me about a situation in your past experience in which you need to deliver some task, you face this problem, what action did you take, and what were the results of your action, right? Or they might ask the same question, right? Looking into hypotheticals in the future, right? They can say, imagine you are working here and you have to deliver this task and you face this challenge, this problem. What would you do? What actions would you take? How would you handle the situation, and what you would expect the outcomes to be, right? So whether it's the question is asked in the past or hypothetical in the future, that's the question where they're saying, tell me what your personal attributes are and that you fit in the company culture. And because you know what the company culture is, it's actually very simple to answer to that question. So let's make it real, right? Let's say I am in the interviewer and I ask you this question. Imagine you are working here and you have a project that requires you to collaborate with someone in a different department so that you can deliver a report and deliver that to company leadership, right? So that's the task you need to achieve. And then, but your partner, right, the person in the other department you need help from to deliver that result, that person is not prioritizing the task. The person is busy with something else. They don't want to collaborate with you to deliver the task. What would you do, right? So that's a very common question. The common questions there are usually collaboration, working with a difficult person, communication challenges, prioritization challenges, and things like that, right? So the questions might change a little bit, but they are going to follow that structure. And then, so how do you handle that? And this is the advice I give you. I have in my career interviewed hundreds of people in small, medium, very large tech companies. And again, I'm always looking for the same thing, right? So if I would always start by making sure I understand the question and I'm taking the right assumptions, right? So I would say something like, okay, my understanding, you're asking me that in order to deliver in an important task, I need to collaborate with someone, and that someone is not prioritizing the task. You asking me how would I handle that, right? And the interviewer is gonna say, yes, that's exactly what I'm asking you. And by restating and testing your assumptions, there are two things there. You're making sure that you understood it correctly, and secondly, give you some time to put your stories together, right, so that you can deliver next. So step one, just validate your assumptions and make sure you understand the question. And then before you go into answering the question, and that's again my advice to you, because you know the company culture and you have prepared for it, I want you to state your cultural attitude, right? So let's say you are applying for a company that values collaboration, that values people who can handle things without going to ask their boss for a solution, independence, right, and independent executions. You know that. So if that's the case, I would start my answer, right, by saying, I believe that in any complex organization, collaboration and communication is key, right? If we can talk to each other and we can have develop common understanding, we can solve any problem in the world, right? And that's how I operate. That's how I like to do things, right? So basically, you are saying, I belong in the company. I fit in your company culture. And the interviewer is going to say, wow, this person did the homework. They understand what I'm looking for. And they are just telling me that they are exactly what I'm looking for, right? So you state your attitude and now you can prove it, right? You can provide a proof point by answering the question. And I would answer the question this way, right? Um, so in the situation described, right, I need to collaborate with someone, but that someone is not prioritizing their task. My first assumption is that they are not prioritized because they don't understand, right, that this task is a priority for the company. So my action would be, I would just go talk to them and say, hey, this is what I'm trying to accomplish. In order to deliver this, I need your collaboration. This is important for the company. So let's work together, right? And in my experience, 80% of the time, that solves the problem. The person will help me. We work together and deliver the task successfully. It could be that the person says, well, I understand this is important, but my boss is saying this is not priority for me, or I don't think this is priority for me, and then I would leverage, right? If communication is not enough, then I would leverage the company structure and say, hey, these are my organizational goals. This is the company goals. This is my organizational goals. This is your organizational goals. This is my role in the company. This is your role in the company. We need, if the company is going to achieve that, we need to collaborate and deliver that, right? And again, in 15% of the rest of the cases, once we understand the structure of the company and that's important for both organizations, right? The person is going to say, oh yes, I did understand this was important because of that. Of course, I'll collaborate with you and deliver the solution, right? There are situations in which the person is going to still say, well, my boss gave me all these tasks. I'm too busy. I cannot prioritize that. And then as a last resort, right, I would go to my boss. I would ask my partner to go to their boss and have the two managers talk to each other and resolve whether this task is important for the company or not, so that we can either collaborate to do it together or we move on to our next task, right? And that should solve the problem. So by providing this answer, right, by saying I would first just try communication because it must be just a communication problem. If not, I would invoke the structure, right, the processes and the roles and responsibilities and the objectives of the company. In the last case, I would just escalate and ask our bosses to solve the problem. So I'm demonstrating, right, that I understand those challenges. I understand how to address those challenges. And before I go talk to my boss, I try to solve it by myself, right? So you demonstrated the cultural attitude. You provide the proof points that validate, right, what you said before. And then if you, whether you're a college student or you have professional experience, there is always stories you can tell to make it real, right? So I would finish. So my fourth step, right? First step is validating your assumptions. Second step is declaring your cultural attitude that matches the company culture. Number three, you answer the question by telling a story, right? And number four, you make it real by connecting to a real example, right? So I would very quickly say, for example, in my last job 6 months ago, we had this problem. Eventually, we had to escalate to our bosses, and what happened is the manager of my partner had misunderstood the company objective, and they had not propagated that objective into my partner's objectives. But once they talked, they realized, well, of course, this is very important for the company, and my partner's manager told him or her, just collaborate and get this done, right? So by doing that, you further reinforce not only that you know how to do, you have done it in the past, right? And that's the perfect way for you to address behavioral question. So once you understand the structure, it's very easy for you to answer the question. I think the most challenging thing is actually to develop the stories, right? And to tell the story during the interview in a very fluid way. So before you go to any job interview or in general, right, collect those stories, right? Things that you have done in the past challenges you had in working in a group in a college project or at work, right? And cultivate those stories, right? Tell that story repeatedly so that they come out of your mouth very fluid. And because those questions, right, the behavioral questions, they are not interested in the details of the story. They just want to they want to know, right? If you have the right attitude, the questions are very formulaic. You're gonna, they're all gonna sound very similar time over time. And if you have a collection of 3, 4, 5 stories, right, you'll be able to very quickly in real time adapt the story to the detail of the question, and show, right, that you understand what they are looking for, you understand the structure of the question, and you have hopefully some story that shows you have experience facing those situations. I hope that gives you more confidence. There are plenty of examples on YouTube, the internet, on specific formulations of behavioral questions. But if you understand the structure, you recognize that during the interview, you're gonna feel much more confident and much more prepared to handle it. I hope that's useful. If it was, please subscribe and share this content. And if you're in college, you have a lot of college friends, please help me by sharing the channel with your peers. And don't forget to check the content of the channel. We have more specific advice on preparing for interviews and how interviews go and things like that. The psychology of hiring managers. So check the content of the channel. And good luck in your job search. And see you then. Bye.